He's here on the 615 Sessions podcast, but Joe Rexrode of The Athletic and 1025 The Game has stumbled his way into the Zoom screen. Hello, buddy.
Hello, Mr. Reising. How are we? I can't wait. I'm going to be seeing you so often now, and I can't tell you how giddy I am about it.
I don't know if you're going to be seeing me so often because this radio thing that Kaharski used to have to deal with kind of directly conflicts with my Titans availability. So I'm not sure how I'm going to navigate this quite yet.
Oh, yeah. I guess I could have thought of that, huh?
Yeah, that's it's something that we're working through at present.
You going to kind of mix it up, try to get out there here and there type thing?
Well, right now it looks like I'm going to be doing my radio show from training camp basically every day that they have training camp. So I'll be there, but I may have some issues getting to and fro from, socially distanced in-person though interviews. And then during the season, we have strategized me being able to go to locker room at least 2 days a week. So I may not be out there for practice anymore, but if locker room is in fact the thing that we get back, we're going to be able to make that work somehow.
That'll probably be plenty of you anyway, so that'll work out.
I think everybody's getting what they want out of this. I have to do less. People are seeing me less, but they're hearing me talk more. So I'm not certain if this is balancing it out, but it's going to be okay because training camp is upon us, Joseph. No more rest, no more relaxation. It is officially time to give up our lives to the god of football.
Yes. And that's just fine. I will say that a month ago, I kind of had these visions of like almost total normalcy, which of course have just been shattered, and my naivete again on display, or inability to read tea leaves. But I guess it's a little bit better this year, right? We get some in-person pressers. We get to, I guess, bark at guys from 6 feet away. It's not all Zoom. So I guess we have to look at this as a step forward year, and maybe 22 will be back to normal.
Well, maybe by then we'll be through with the Delta variant, but there will be a Zeta variant that's hovering over us all and trying to kill us. I'm tired of variants. I'm tired of Zoom. I'm tired of all of it. But regardless, we soldier on. So like with this week, we're obviously doing this for the people before Vrabel has talked to the media vultures for the first time in person in the better part of a calendar year. But what is the biggest storyline for you heading into this, given that you are a noted journalist with a capital J?
Yeah, right. I mean, I think it's the exciting part, of course, is watching these offensive skill guys work together and Tannehill throwing to Julio and all these things. But I mean, to me, the storyline is the defense, and specifically, I think it's the two guys who aren't on the field right now, because both of them are critically important. Your first round pick, Caleb Farley, your big free agent signing, Bud Dupree. I mean, I think Bud Dupree is probably the individual storyline of this year for me, because you invested a lot. He's the big guy coming off an ACL, and we all know what that third down defensive pass rush was last year. So I think with him, it's a little bit, I mean, I think we can kind of not be surprised by where he is right now and expect him to probably not see a ton of action in camp. But the idea being that obviously as early as possible in the season he plays. The Farley thing is just, I mean, I have no idea what to expect there. I mean, based on draft night, he shouldn't be on NFI right now, but I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's just a totally different thing. ACL has a certain timeline to it, and Bud Dupree is a proven player. He looks to be in great shape, per Insta or whatever you kids are on these days. And so, I mean, I think that's sort of set aside, and we'll see when the season starts. But during camp, how many times we're going to ask about Caleb Farley until he's out there, and how close is he? And when he does get out there, how quickly can he get up to speed and be available to actually contribute to this defense?
And all of those questions will yield the same answer, which is we don't talk about injuries and we don't put timelines on players. So I don't know how, because we have to ask the question, but it yields no different result, especially the way that Zoom has kind of narrowed things in a way that makes follow-ups more difficult. And we'll see how that goes on Tuesday when we are finally back in person and able to pepper Vrabel more efficiently. As long as Terry doesn't have to rely on any kind of internet connection, I think it's going to be a substantially improved product. But yeah, I mean, at least with Farley, though, I mean, nothing gets better unless the pass rush gets fixed. And an early December, rather, first week of December ACL tear for Bud Dupree is not ideal, but it is something that you can feel cautiously optimistic about. Although to have optimism about this team in pass rush, I think, is foolish. But without Farley, at least it feels like there's a little bit, not much, but a little bit of cushion, because I'm interested to see. We know they're going to put Jackrabbit on the outside, but that's really the only thing that we know. Fulton started in the slot and then was playing a lot more on the outside when he came back from injury last year. But I don't know if that was matchup dictated or that was something that they felt like he was more comfortable doing, given how much better he was on the outside at LSU. You have Elijah Molden, who will face the same kind of learning curve that we're talking about for Farley once he gets on the field. But even then, not really, because as weird and twisted as the Pac-12 season was last year, at least Elijah Molden played football. We're talking about a dude who hasn't played football in Farley since 2019. And I mean, we have Coach Mack on the radio show every Friday, and we were talking about, the nuances that receivers have in the league that they don't necessarily have at the college football level, and how that's going to be probably the biggest adjustment for these guys, regardless of their situation coming in. I think they get a baptism by fire just given who they're going to go up against, and how much Julio actually practices remains to be seen, given that he famously doesn't practice the last 2 years. But at least with AJ, they'll have somebody to kind of put him on it a little bit. And then when they go to Tampa Bay for joint training camp practices, we're talking about arguably the best trio of wide receivers in the league, with, even though Antonio Brown is probably a little bit diminished at this point. Like, they have the opportunity to get these guys better ahead of DeAndre Hopkins trying to, cough on them and give them some kind of variant, but also beat them in the end zone. I don't know if it's too early to get bent out of shape about the Farley situation. Like, nothing I've ever seen with Adoree Jackson last year, where everybody is being told basically on or off the record that he's going to be ready in week 7 against the Steelers. And then it goes on for several more weeks, and then they activate him and they still don't put him out there for several more weeks after that, because again, no timelines, no injuries. So I don't know what the hell to make of this situation.
Well, it's a good point. Farley, look, I mean, if we know Jenkins, I think you lock him in on one side, he'll be fine. I mean, I think Molden has promise as someone who could help you in the slot quickly. I mean, everything about him says he's going to be as prepared as you can be. And like you said, he played football last year. And then to me, I mean, I think you want Fulton to establish himself and be the guy on the other side of Jenkins. So there is some growth. I mean, the Farley thing is an investment in what you hope is a great player over a period of time. But I don't love their depth after those 3 guys too. And the bottom line is it's a first-round pick. I think he can help this team if he can, be healthy enough to help this team. And after the last first-round pick, that's also part of the questioning and just the wondering about what's going on with him, which is no fault of his, obviously. But I think that probably ratchets things up a little bit. Wait till these guys, speaking of Hopkins, wait till these guys have to face off with Cole Beasley. I mean, I guess Hopkins maybe gets them ready for Beasley, right?
Well, by then he's I'm certain has taken his life into his own hands with the questionable decision making that he is so comfortable expressing on social media, with no legitimate train of thought at all, just kind of spouting nonsense into the ether about that. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think the best thing that the Titans have going for them is, if any NFL team probably has herd immunity, it's these idiots, because they were all sick last year, and not idiots by their own fault. It was an unfortunate situation. I shouldn't say that, but yeah, I mean, I just, the whole thing, Rex, I mean, we're going to have 100% capacity. I guess it's going to be somewhat normal, but like I again have this just I'm reminded by hosting the Olympics in the middle of basically a state of emergency in the country of Japan, where there's no fans and there's Delta variant all over the place. And now we're talking about, I mean, hell, if we got COVID tested today, you have Frank Reich, as we tape this on a Monday, Frank Reich, who's fully vaccinated, testing positive for the Colts. We got vaccinated, or we got tested for the first time today. Those of us who are vaccinated and going to be in the press box and resuming semi-normal activities. Hell, we could have it, and we don't know based on how this thing seems to go. So all of the COVID reserve list announcements already being put out. I just have this looming sense of dread about a football season that I want to be normal, but I just have a gut feeling is not going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, that, again, like it's like a month ago, I was allowing myself to, to think about like real normalcy. But, the thing is, yeah, Frank Reich tested positive, and I wouldn't be surprised if one of us, I mean, I believe we've all been vaccinated. I mean, I know I'm so old. It's been a long time for me, Buck. We'll test positive. But again, I'm glad I got vaccinated because it means it's protecting me whether I test positive or not. And, it's just, I mean, look, there's a lot of legitimate conversation around this thing. And frankly, I think the NFL has done a good job of bringing the hammer down on this, and it's working, but the problem is you have, even beyond Beasley, you have his teammate Feliciano there just throwing out the absolute, let's get on some deranged website and listen to some deranged podcast and throw out just complete ass-wipe conspiracy theories. And I mean, I have this argument all the time with people about how big the lunatic fringe is. Okay. I know some people are like, you're overreacting to a tiny, tiny amount of people. And I'm like, I always say, I pray you're right.
Yeah.
But when things like this happen, it makes me think that they're not right. And it really makes me concerned. But that's the type of shit that needs to be wiped from the conversation. There is legit, conversation we had around the virus or the vaccine and the swiftness with which it was, brought to the public and all that stuff. But I think at this point, I mean, it's funny too, Buck, like how many guys in the NFL or even just in like highest level of sport in general have like ingested something for whatever reason that has way bigger questions about it to get some kind of an advantage. And now we're talking about trying to be healthy.
I believe when I did the reporting on Taylor Lewan's non-cleared supplements that he was taking, there was a total of 27, if I remember correctly, from a couple of years ago when he got popped for what was considered a performance-enhancing substance. So God knows. And I don't use Lewan as an example of a vax or not vax. I'm just saying, like, these dudes are putting God knows what in them, and they're doing probably just as much research on that as they are the vaccine. And then it's easier, and I've expressed this opinion plenty of times. I'm sure people are tired of hearing it, but they have all of the resources at their disposal. All of the resources at their disposal to get on a Zoom with an internal medicine doctor that works for the team or somebody who the team doctor is connected with that can properly educate them on it. But it's easier to bitch about, freedom on Twitter and things like that rather than actually inform yourself on what you claim to have so many questions about, but aren't actually asking the questions. You're just bitching.
By the way,
go ahead.
Real quick, let's give credit to a lot of guys who I think have gone about this the exact right way. In fact, there's some guys on this team, on this Titans team, who have had reservations and concerns and questions and appear to have done exactly that. And there's still, I hear a lot, I've heard a lot, because I think, 10 teams now, 90% plus?
Pelissero reported today that 10 teams were at least at 90% or more.
And I've seen a fair amount of, I still don't feel great about it, but I'm doing it for the team. Seems like a lot of guys have sought that out, because if you really do seek it out, other than like fake ass internet Dr. Nick Riviera, you're going to have some pretty consistent information.
I don't know if you can hear me, Rexrode, but as soon as you started talking shit about the internet, your internet slowed down. So I think they're after you.
Did you laugh at my Nick Riviera joke? Because you totally froze as soon as I said that.
I did laugh at your Nick Riviera joke, but then you started to
Thank
devolve into robot Jim Wyatt kind of tones. And so I just figured I'd let you make the point and pray to God we can keep this thing on track for the next 10 minutes. So this training camp preview quickly devolved into vaccination talk, but it is important, of course, because this is going to be a legitimate competitive advantage for teams who choose not to meet the threshold that the NFL has kind of set about trying to direct them in that way, with very, very harsh punishments if they do not, in fact, follow these guidelines. But I guess, Rex, I'm curious because, and it's not just because I want to make fun of you for your Nick Westbrook-Akina article earlier in the offseason where where there was musings of how he could potentially contribute to the team, and now I don't even think that he's the sixth guy in front of Racey McMath to make the roster, given how much the dynamic of the wide receiver room has changed. But what are your concerns outside of the two obvious that we talked about earlier? Because I had a lot of hesitancy about them trying to get back to the same kind of offense, if not the same schematics, but the same kind of dominance on offense once we hit the offseason. And it's not all alleviated by Julio Jones, but there's just too many reasons to think that they're going to be too many reasons to think that they're going to be some kind of fearsome, rather than to doubt whether they have a fully formed tight end and instead have two number wide receivers and Anthony Ferkser, who's going to be fine, I think, in this position. I'm really not sweating anything about the offense the way that I thought I would, outside of, Art not being here.
Yeah, I mean, I think my number one thing would be who's kicking. I mean, that could be 4 or 5 games that come down to that. I mean, it really could. So that's hugely important, and I really don't know what to think on that. And it's going to be interesting right from the start with McCann and Haubill, when their little competitions in front of everyone, and all the other work they're doing to try to find for the Titans as they try to find someone long term. But I mean, I still put tight end in that category. The obvious concern is just everything on the other side of the ball. But I mean, I still wonder about when you want to go big, when being able to have that versatility and have enough guys that you feel good about. I mean, they're so young at tight end after Ferkser and Swaim. I also still I just believe that we're going to have another name at some point at that spot. Maybe not, but that would be my prediction right now. But I agree. I mean, the offense overall, I mean, I think there may not be more pressure on anyone than Todd Downing because of what he has and what has been happening on offense, the performance that he's trying to keep going. But man, he's got, because I like, the fact that you bring in Ray Duns. I mean, I think the depth on the offensive line looks good. I mean, Lawan back healthy. People probably aren't talking about that enough, but it was a big, big loss last year, and they still figured a way to keep producing, but they were very different without him. And I just think Darrington Evans is definitely a guy to watch in camp. I'm really interested to see how they utilize him, whether he can really step forward and become a weapon. And I think with him, with Julio Jones in, I like Reynolds too. I mean, I think that more than makes up for what they lost offensively. But I still feel like tight end needs to be addressed in some way, or someone needs to step forward. And then, again, I'll go back to place kicking. I mean, is Steven Gostkowski?
He lives in Franklin. He's not retired. So this is, and I've had conversations with people in the facility about this. Vrabel doesn't seem to take kicking seriously. And maybe that sounds like base analysis, but that's what I get told. I get told about it frequently enough that I'm starting to think it, given the way that they've just kind of handled the kicking situation. And Gostkowski honestly bailed them out in a big way. They didn't have to worry about him, and they got other things that they have to worry about. But I mean, you're talking about how, whether it's luck or whether it's skill or anything in between, they were successful in one-score games last year. They let a lot of games go to overtime. Not a lot of games, but enough games, divisional games, go to overtime in a way that they needed 3 points to bail their asses out. In fact, they don't get anywhere. They don't sniff the Minnesota game if not for Gostkowski. And that was one of the best performances by a special teams player we'd seen all year. So, I mean, I don't know what Tucker McCann is. I don't know what Blake Haubeil is. I don't. All I know is what we watch at practice. And I mean, maybe they see a little more during the rest of the practice that they shut down to us, but I can't imagine it's much different. So at a certain point, I get you're up against the cap this year, and the Julio thing complicates a lot of your salary cap problems. And I think Gostkowski was just a little under $3 million last year, whereas Tucker McCann and Blake Haubeil are going to be markedly less expensive. But of all the places that you're going to look to save or look to skimp, I just don't think it can be kicker with how poorly they've been at field goals the last couple of years.
Well, I agree. I mean, but, I think, I guess, look, if Gostkowski's down to return, and that's where maybe it's just sort of like a little bit of a sense of security that, you can have him, and that he did have a better second half after a real shaky first half, other than the Minnesota game you mentioned, and a few other huge kicks, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean, you still feel okay with him. You want to find your long-term solution, but that's easier said than done. I mean, the long-term solution is in Tampa Bay. He still has good years left as one of the top kickers in the league. And that's just how it is right now. So, but I agree with you. I mean, there's probably there's of course a lot more than what we see, but what's more important than when they know everybody is watching them? That's what you're trying to replicate for guys like that. Right. And I just, in terms of McCann, I just haven't seen enough to make me confident in him at this point.
Well, we haven't seen anything. He's been on the practice squad IR for his duration with the team, basically, at this point. And we get a little bit of a glimpse at mandatory minicamp or these OTAs that we've been able to attend. And it's not like training camp, maybe training camp is a market improvement. It's not like he was bad. It's not like he was good. We're all watching the same thing and wondering whether he's going to be able to do it in an NFL game. Now, I know he played in the SEC, but he played in the SEC in a year it wasn't his only year in the SEC, but at Missouri, it's just a different environment. There's a lot of different elements that go into place kicking at the NFL level. And it seems like such a waste of breath to spend training camp analysis talking about the kicker, but I don't know that there's a less decided position right now on the roster. Because, I mean, what else are we talking about? Everybody else is basically in their places. We'll see if Radens ends up starting week 1 at right tackle. And if Dupree can't go, then they better pray that Rashad Weaver is innocent of all of the things that he is alleged to have done. And they probably won't know about that until October. So, outside of that, it's kicker, and everything else is, okay, well, we'll see what the defense is, because we don't know what these players look like together. This is the first time that we've seen a largely rebuilt defense. And they had to do it can't be worse. The only place that it can get worse is turnover differential. Where they can get worse is kicking, because we've seen them make 44% of their field goals in a year where they went to the AFC Championship game. So, maybe we're overblowing a little bit, but I don't damn think so.
Well, now that you mention it, it makes camp a little more interesting, because it would have been kind of an uneventful camp, at least in terms of battles, right? I mean, there's at least something to look forward to at the end of every sweat-drenched session as we go out there, and John Glennon's in his, all wrapped up in his various hats and whatever, and we can all gather together. Yeah, so many hats. And we need to actually have a plan, because we have actually disagreed on whether some kicks went through or not. We've got to actually have a better plan of attack this year. So this is good. I'm glad we're talking this through.
Who do we nominate as back judge for practice? Because now we're going to have to set up somebody behind the field goal uprights. We're going to have to, I'm sure there will be a herd of us on the sidelines. Somebody's going to have to watch from behind the defense like Coach Mack does. We're going to have a whole setup to make sure these fucking kicks go in.
We need the young eyes, to be really utilized here. So you've got to get in there as much as possible. I mean, I do trust Jimmy Wyatt more than me, but I mean, we've got some people who've been with this team the whole way. We got, Kaharski and Beauclair and Glennon and Teresa. I mean, I think we need to get your guy Luke out there. I mean, he's a young,
Well, and Luke had to have eye surgery last year.
kid.
Luke is the oldest young person you'll ever meet in your entire life. Luke Worsham is, I mean, I'm an old young person, but Luke is like 110 at age 17 or however the hell old he is.
I can't wait till we get back to like Luke asking Vrabel questions at the pressers. It's great on Zoom, but it's even better in person. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, because because at least in Zoom, Mike has the ability to kind of decompress a little bit rather than make a look at Luke like he's going to swat him away like a fly around an elephant. It is it is a tradition unlike any other. Luke Worsham asking Vrabel a question that is way too long and way too detailed and inevitably pisses Mike off. It is among my favorite things. If we can't have Terry's just discombobulation over the internet anymore, at least we get Luke in person with Vrabel back.
I don't want to hear. I don't trust any of Terry's views on the field goals either. I mean, we got some issues. We got some shortcomings here.
Why are we so old as a media corps? What the hell?
Ben Arthur. We need Ben Arthur, Luke, you. I mean, I trust TD. I'll trust TD. TD's, closer in my range, but he's got a good feel for this. But Jimmy can probably get to places no one else can, right? Is that right?
Well, Wyatt has
like out there.
Wyatt, he denies it, but he has like a drone that he has somebody organizing or directing during practice that he gets all of these crazy angles of all of the video that we can't get by ourselves. Wyatt's hiding in trees. He's ducking behind tackling dummies. Jimmy is a team employee and does the job better than all of us combined. It feels like, it's even still. But yeah, I mean,
True.
There are outside of that, like, and I was thinking about this because obviously you've already talked about it for 4 hours today. I've talked about it for 3 hours today. There is so little that we don't know outside of the kicker and maybe right tackle, but for as much as they have him, working with the first team in Radens and at multiple positions, like, I just don't see a way where he doesn't find a way into the starting lineup in some form or fashion. And maybe it's not week one. Maybe Kendall Lamb is they trust him more in a starting situation, but it's like Jameel Douglas with Nate Davis. Like I don't know if Kendall Lamb is as bad at professional football as Jameel Douglas was. But I remember very clearly the moment in Atlanta where they yanked Jameel Douglas out of there mid-game and said, "All right, Nate, go get him." And now Nate's one of the best offensive linemen interior offensive linemen in the sport right now. He's a certified shit kicker. I don't know if Radens is that, but I just don't think they're gonna coddle him. I think they'd rather see him out there sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and I think Lamb's a good veteran who's been okay for a few years in this league. Who's got some, he's been. I mean, like, that's not a bad guy to compete with, and you do hope if you're the Titans, you spend a second round pick on a guy. You hope that at the end of camp or not too long after that he wins that battle. But I agree. I mean, it's really, to me, it's like I'm actually glad that we have preseason games. Yeah. I mean, I never have said that before, but it does give you a chance to see these kickers in an actual game situation. It does give you a chance to see whoever's out there in the secondary for however long Vrabel's comfortable, playing his first team, actually trying to communicate with each other and, cover NFL receivers. So, I mean, that's, to me, it's just the entirety of the defense and whatever glimpses we get, ones versus ones against the Bucks in that practice. I probably very limited opportunities in preseason games based on what we've seen of Vrabel, but still some. I mean, that's, to me, the story.
Just Woodside and
Kaiser. Are they different? Are they better?
Some evidence that they have any kind of competency behind Tannehill. Like, I think that's probably, if we're talking just wholesale 1,000-foot view, like, I think the Titans are a hugely talented team, but I believe them to be incredibly top heavy, mostly because we haven't seen what else the hell is behind these guys. And that's, Lewan goes down and Clowney goes down and there are some starters that we have seen not finish and what was behind them, which was, of course, incredibly lackluster in the case of the pass rush. But like, we did not have the opportunity to learn anything about the depth behind these starters. And I don't have any evidence to the contrary until we get out there and we see more of them. But like, I think that's probably, if we're talking about the biggest difference between the Titans and the Colts, I think the Colts have more depth with what they want to do than the Titans do. Now, this is the team that I cover, and I have no idea whether that's accurate or not, because we've seen so little from the depth because of what COVID has done to the opportunities to see a lot of these guys in action. But outside of that, I mean, this feels pretty, for all the hype around them, this feels like a pretty relaxed camp that we're getting ready to go into.
Yeah, I do agree that, depth is unknown and interesting to me at some spots. D-line depth to me is very interesting. I mean, you've got to be able to rotate guys in there. And I know we're going to see in a lot of cases, two defensive linemen on the field at once, but I'm still interested there. And, still with the secondary, a lot of it's defense, but yeah, I agree. I mean, the backup QB thing will be interesting. It should be a good competition. You hope if you're the Titans because I think it's close. I know some people are higher on DeShone Kizer. I think it's pretty darn close, but I know it's not close between Tannehill and either one of those guys. Yeah. So I mean, you have to spend too much time with either of them on the field, and that just doesn't bode well for you. But still, at least something to watch. And I think it's going to be. You think who's your pick there right now?
Quarterback, backup. I mean, Kizer is responsible for some of the worst football that I've ever seen at the professional level, because he was
one of the worst teams.
Which is fair, right? He was the second round pick out of Notre Dame for the winless Cleveland Browns that year that we watched the Titans and the Browns go overtime without a touchdown scored. It was a field goal game, the Byard hat trick interception game. It's as angry as I've ever. The Denver Broncos 16-0 Marcus Mariota game remains the worst football that I've ever seen in my life. But
yeah,
the overtime 12-9 winless Cleveland Browns triumph for Mike Mularkey that for some reason entrenched him in his position of whatever the hell he was doing on offense that year was as bad as anything that I've seen. Now, they have obviously much better talent in Tennessee, and one would think a defense that is going to at least put up a fight on third down in a way that last year's unit was completely incapable of doing. But like the Woodside, the only thing I think that bodes in Woodside's favor is that I don't feel like, and this is just kind of, seems general, but based on their feeling of him, it feels like they don't think Logan Woodside will lose them a game. Not necessarily. I mean, he may not necessarily win them the game, but Logan Woodside will not put them in detrimental positions. Like he is not overwhelmingly talented. Kizer and him are built. They're a completely different species between what they are capable of doing. But it's how much risk I think how much more risk Kizer is as opposed to Woodside that is the reason why I think you're probably thinking it's closer than like, say, I know Tehran is full team Kizer at this point. And looking at them, I completely understand why he would be, but there is such an element of risk in DeShone Kizer's game that I feel like they would fear if it came to that.
Yeah, I have to plug in real quick or I'm going to disappear.
That's fine.
Well, I agree. Like if you went over a month, I might prefer Kizer because he might be able to win you a game or two with playmaking, that Woodside can't do. But in terms of just like manage a game, I'd probably feel more comfortable with Woodside right now. But also just based on their reps in the spring, I didn't see it. I didn't see a huge difference.
No.
Yeah, so that's gonna be very interesting. I mean, look, when Simeon came in last year, a lot of people, and I was probably close to being in this camp, just kind of assumed, okay, good job, Logan, thanks a lot. And I think a lot of that was Simeon looked terrible immediately and never changed. But Woodside, he's done a good job of entrenching himself, and they like him in the building.
Yeah. Survival, if nothing else, is an attribute that Logan Woodside has. We survived this podcast with minimal difficulty, half hour later than it should have been. Though it may be, we are going to be out there on Tuesday. We are going to be out there on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and basically it's all Titans all the time now until Tennessee finds a way to foul up the college football season for all of us to chatter about. So Rexrode, of course, 102.5 The Game, 6 to 10 a.m. is where you can find him. You can read him at The Athletic, well worth your subscription, even if he gives you information like Nick Westbrook-Akina is wide receiver 2. We will see if he's even on the roster. I very, very much doubt it.
Come on.
No.
I never said he was wide receiver 2. You guys are all – it's such a huge misinformation campaign by you and Kaharski, man.
Well, listen, it's one that I completely support. Stop the count. These are the things. If there is going to be misinformation spread, then this is the kind of misinformation that I will take to Facebook with and proliferate Facebook groups and try and uneducate the masses against you, because this was fraudulent. This was stolen. A stolen election from Nick Westbrook-Akina. Racing McMath has no position. Then we will need recounts in Arizona immediately to make sure that this thing can go off without a hitch.
Hey, I got them both making the team, by the way. But as much as it pains me, and Cam Batson not making the team, am I crazy?
No, but I think this is probably the year that they opt for more wide receivers, given what and again, the tight end thing I think has another evolution to it that we have yet to see. But as we look at it today with the however many, I don't think they're quite at 90-man roster that they have right now, it seems like it would be an extra wide receiver, and Cam Batson would probably be on the outside looking in, given that he no longer is needed for return abilities with Des Fitzpatrick and Darrington Evans, who we think is going to probably be the guy.
Yeah, but also Cam Batson's like as professional and inspirational a dude as they have too. So
lovely human. Yeah. Every time he gets hit, he looks like he's going to spontaneously combust, and he's not that good. So
there's that.
You don't have to be. You have to be a good person to be a good football player. Not that any of them are bad people, but at this point, Cam Batson, the moral is he's not going to be able to survive on morals alone.
Fair.
All right, get off my Zoom.
Good to be with you, Buck.
It's all well. It does feel it will feel better when we can do. I don't know if we'll produce the show on air. Should I bring back the in-person pods? I feel like this is just so much easier for people. Like I hate doing these on Zoom, and because my new and improved studio looks very nice now that they've built me at home.
I still think that there's something to back and forth and that's right next to each other, you know. But yeah, this is effective. I suppose Zoom is here to stay in some form. The less amount of Zoom I can do moving forward, the more grateful I will be. But it does have its uses. Okay. I would say whenever you can do the in-person, do the in-person.
All right. Well, we'll see when my schedule allows for that, Rex. It's not like I got a bunch of free time anymore. All right, get the hell off my Zoom. 6 to 10 a.m. Robbie and Rexrode. Read them in The Athletic. Well worth your subscription. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy. See ya.